Yeah, I mean, we need to figure out what the Pac-12 is going to do, but I think you got to figure out what's the Big Ten doing, because who's the one that could go and break up the Pac-12?
Yeah,
it's the Big Ten. So if the Big Ten signing this massive deal, which I know for even some Big Ten people last night, they saw those numbers and went, wait a second, like this doesn't make total sense. Like this is more than bargained for. So either they're just getting way more money than they expected in some cases. Maybe it's exactly what they thought. But I think it's either more money than was expected, or like I said a few minutes ago, something seems unsettled here. Like there's details that we don't know yet, and that could be just the deal itself, or that could be something even bigger. I'm not trying to like speculate too much, but like I don't think we have enough clarity alone on the Big Ten, because what if their deal's bigger because they've swung a situation where Notre Dame's coming? Or what if their deal's bigger because Oregon and Washington are coming? So, I need to see that first, because that will then obviously say the rest of it. But I did see a lot of victory laps being taken last night by the Pac-12, by the Big 12 sort of kind of, because I think they're still so in the dark that they need to see what the Big 10 does, what the Pac-12 does, and so on and so forth. But I don't know. There seems like there's a couple of different ways this could go, quite frankly. And I think until the Big 12 tells everybody else what basically they're going to do and what they're going to look at Big 10, that, what else are you going to do? The Pac can't really move forward unless they have some assurance that everything is going to be as is. And that, to me, is the tricky part, because as you just talked about, so are they going to get the type of deal where the Big Ten's going to say, all right, we're hands off, we're not going to touch you guys, go ahead and have your little deal, Oregon and Washington and Stanford, we won't come get you? Or is there going to be this open-endedness that is obviously going to play into whatever kind of a deal the Pac were to sign, which then, of course, plays into a billion other different spin-off, topics?
Well, Notre Dame's AD Jack Swarbrick has sent out a notice that he's having a town hall or whatever of sorts to let everybody know what the kind of plans are, the options are for them moving forward.
I wouldn't think that a town hall meeting is when you're going to announce some kind of massive.
No, but I think that's where he's going to gauge. He might be able to gauge some kind of response to it. And because there might be, I don't know what Notre Dame fans are thinking. Do they want to be in the Big Ten? Because they could have done that any time in their history. Like what's changed now outside of the money and the path to the playoff? Like, one, we have to figure out what the playoff is going to be. We're going to have to figure out so many of those things. And, what does Notre Dame want to do? Like Craig said, are some of these things open? So now the Big Ten knows its TV deal, so now it feels comfortable offering Oregon and Washington, as where the USC-UCLA thing was in the works for months, so they knew that was going to be part of it. But that could have been the end of it for the TV networks that said, look, this is the money that we're going to spend, and we're happy with this, and we don't care about that other stuff. But now that they say, yeah, we do care, rope in a couple more teams. And
so you think what we learned last night is a possibility that includes Washington and Oregon? Is that what you're saying?
If there's more money there than they thought. Like Craig,
I don't think there is more money. I think it's about what everyone thought it was going to be. But we don't know that for sure. We don't know the exact whatever billion. But I don't see that as an Oregon-Washington thing. If it is for them, good for them.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's directly them. Again, Notre Dame hasn't made a decision. Yeah. So until Notre Dame makes a decision, this is all unofficial. Like, I think that's pretty simple. And then, there's the Pac-12 side of this as well. But is Notre Dame joining the Big Ten? You would think that that's a part of these conversations, no? You'd think that that's probably being brought up with Fox and NBC and streaming and everybody else, Peacock. I'm imagining that's part of the equation. So if they're a part of the deal or if they're not part of the deal, that's going to obviously lay some dominoes out in a pretty specific way, because Notre Dame being independent or going to the Big Ten is going to have ramifications on everybody else. And if you're the Big Ten, the reason why I'm saying the thing about the Pac-12, even though I'm really focusing on Notre Dame, is they're negotiating a TV deal right now, okay, worth billions of dollars. The entire time we've been talking about realignment and expansion. So is this TV deal going to have some sort of deal built within it that in 2, 3, 4 years, if Oregon and Washington or Stanford or the Big Ten decides, hey, we want to go do something, is that like in this agreement? Or is this settling the waters for the next 5 to 10 years, which I doubt? Or like, you see what I'm saying? Like we don't have clarity. I don't think this is just simply, this is a deal for the schools that are currently in the Big Ten and the 2 LA schools, and then boom, that's it, that's done. Now, if it is, that's notable because that means that everything's pretty much staying status quo in the Big Ten and status quo with Notre Dame and status quo with the Pac-12 and so on and so forth. So that's to me what's going to be interesting is the actual details of this and what all it encompasses, what room's left over, obviously, for others. And I just saw a lot of, victory laps being taken by, like I said, various conferences, the Pac-12 in particular. And I don't know. I just wouldn't be so sure just yet. I do think it is good news on the surface for the Pac-12 and to a lesser extent the Big 12. But until I see something concrete, I don't know if that's the case or not.
All right. Thank you again to Bob Thompson for giving us that extra time today. Matt Super Chat, the campus visits by Yormark are nice, but now is not the time. We need him focused on moving our media rights this year and poaching the Pac-12. Matt, his phone, I have a feeling, is constantly in yes forward mode. He's doing that because I think that's important for him to go see who he's dealing with. The campuses, including yesterday, he said it back in July. Yesterday was in Fort Worth.
Craig brought up I would think the most legitimate critique of him when he was hired at Brett Yormark, in that this is a guy who's been in the Northeast for a long time. What does he know about Ames, Iowa? What does he know about Manhattan, Kansas? Now, that's not something he can't learn, but if he won't, or if he didn't right off the bat, then that would have been a problem. And I don't think that, you really need to beef too much with Yormark because he's going to campuses. I mean, this is 10 days of what's going to be a 2-year negotiation, which I'm sure all that's part of it, because the Big 12 can try to open the window, but if the television networks are waiting on it, then...
Well, that's the other thing, man.
Yeah.
I don't we're all just taking this as face value, and maybe I'm just like a tinfoil hat guy, but who's to say there's not something that he's working on in the background?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is, like, if the Big Ten deal all of a sudden comes out and there's an out there to somehow bring in a couple Pac-12 teams, and then Yormark can swoop in and knows he can go grab some more. Like, I'm not saying that's happening, but until I see a Big Ten deal that says it's this money on these networks for these teams, and there's no outs, and so it's got to stay this way unless, like some team wants to pay $80 million to get out of their conference or something, then I think
somebody's not leaving the Big Ten, what you're saying, right?
Or to join them or something.
Okay.
But outside of that, like, what assurances do we have that the Big Ten's not going to still swoop in and grab somebody?
None.
Here's why I say you don't, but who else out there is going to be valued at $100 million a year?
You're right, but again, we don't know what Notre Dame's doing.
No, you're outside of them. They're always the wild card.
Right.
Outside of them, who else in the country?
And maybe they would be fine being an uneven amount of teams and just having Notre Dame, and that's fine if that's what they do. But again, that has a domino effect because then the Pac-12 stays as is. Now, if you're Oregon and Washington, is that enough assurance of like, okay, we're not going to the Big Ten, we'll sign this grant of rights with the Pac-12? Or are they going to keep their options open? And that's why the whole victory lap by the Pac-12 last night to me was a little strange because, yes, I see where that leaves a big a hole for them to fill in, that late night kickoff, which God forbid they didn't have that. Like, if they didn't have that, there would be like nothing in their favor basically other than just the West Coast. But that's like their thing, obviously. But okay, if that's not guaranteed that, they're not going to expand or whatever, you're just going to like have Oregon and Washington just like on a loose like 1-year deal when they can get out whenever. You know what I'm saying?
And I asked Bob that. And here's the thing. That is death before you even start breathing to me. That Oregon and Washington demand more and get more money, because we heard his reaction to what happened in the Big 12. That eventually was like termites just eating away at the conference's stability and eventually killed it. And then also on top of that, allowing them, we want you, we're going to give you more money, we're going to let you leave when you want, with a little bit of a tie-in of what you pay. To me, that's just your dead man walking.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
Is like, until we know some more details, is like, this could go 4 different ways. Okay, for one, the Big Ten could add some Pac-12 schools, and the Pac-12 is suddenly hurting, and the Big 12 swoops in, and they grab some teams, and the Pac-12 dies, right? The Big Ten could do nothing, and the Pac-12 sits there. Now, that goes one of 2 ways. Does everybody want to go sign a grant of rights agreement because the Pac-12 is safe now, and you just move forward the way you are for the next several years? Or is that still not quite enough, and you explore a merger again, or the other schools go, you know what, no, we are going to explore Big 12 territory and see what that looks like with their future TV deal. Like, there's got to be something like substantial here to settle the waters a little bit.
You know who we have not brought up at all, and they all of a sudden look we've mentioned the SEC, but guess who else we haven't brought up? Because you know what? They're actually okay. The ACC.
Yeah.
Remember, they're just sitting back, let everyone else
Who's
just like
to
beat
say?
each other. And the ACC sitting back, chilling. They've got all these years left. There's no rush. There's no urgency. Maybe they will renegotiate that for a lesser amount of years and more money. Who knows? But they're okay.
But does Notre Dame not have an effect on them as well?
Well, Notre Dame has a huge effect
Yes.
on them. And I know there's a thought that like Notre Dame is Big Ten or bust. But I do think there's a sliver of hope that the ACC has that they could tell Notre Dame, hey, we need you to come in here and help renegotiate our deal. And Notre Dame could go into the ACC and they could be the boss of that conference. Because right now, Notre Dame is their own boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if they're going to join a conference, if they join the Big Ten, kind of like Texas joining the SEC, Texas is not going to join the SEC and be the boss of that league. Now, they're going to throw their weight around as much as they can. Notre Dame's not going to join the Big Ten and be the boss of that league. Now, they'll have sway, but Notre Dame can join the ACC right now, and Jack Swarbrick can be like, hey, guys, quiet down. I'll take care of all this for you. And that to me might be a little intriguing to an organization that is run by the organization that it's run by.
Yeah, I don't buy Notre Dame in the ACC.
I'm telling you that.
I also don't buy that the ACC is a bunch of feeble people. I think there's a few more schools that may say, hey, listen, we've got a pair too. But I get what you're saying as far as the clout. Here's a note from the 573. Notre Dame has no vested interest in joining the Big Ten until you change the status quo. In other words, why would they do anything until they are forced to join another conference to make the college football playoff?
I agree. I've been saying for a while now that I think it makes them less special if they join a conference. I do. I think that it takes away that one thing that is unique about them. And yes, I realize there's other schools that are independent as well, but they're not independent on the same wavelength as Notre Dame. Okay? They're either a service academy, which all due respect, or they're like Liberty, which I don't have as much. So they're on a different plane by themselves. If they join the Big Ten, I understand there will be a segment, especially in probably the Midwest and North, that think like it's still Notre Dame and they're above all else. But no, to me, even with the knowledge of who Notre Dame's been, they're just a Big Ten team now. They're the same as Ohio State.
They're just now they're just attached to a conference.
They're the Catholic Notre Dame school.
Yeah.
I mean the Catholic Big Ten school. And so that to me is what I really believe that little shine of special that they have that nobody else really has. I think that would be lost and they would not be as unique Notre Dame as they have been my entire existence.
Okay, we've got a lot to get to in the next couple of